Hello class. So today we're going to go through what 40 likely JAMB UTME questions. As you all know, the YouTube channel you are watching today is Dr. Flash YouTube channel. So ensure you will subscribe to Dr. Flash YouTube channel. So our first question here is nation state is synonymous with A. Nationalism, B. Self-actualization, C. Liberation, and D. What? Sovereignty. Nation state is synonymous with A. Nationalism, B. Self-actualization, C. Liberation, and D. Sovereignty. Because in our first question here, we saw that what nationalism can never be the answer. Because nationalism have to do with what? Freedom for what? A state, whereby a state is being what? Colonized, and you're what? Ushering for what? Independence. You want what? Independence. That is what? Nationalism. Self-actualization simply means what? It's relating to what? Nationalism. So we can't say that is the answer. Liberation you also relate to what? Independence, nationalism. So we can't say that is the answer. But if we did, we saw that what? Sovereignty is the right answer to pick, because nation state is defined as what? Any group of what? People living in a what? Geographical territory with the presence of sovereignty. And nation state could be what? Characterized by either what? An heterogeneous characteristics or a homogeneous characteristics. So for defining nation state, you have to know that nation state is synonymous with what? A sovereign state. Nation state is synonymous with what? Sovereignty. Because in a state has what? Sovereignty. A nation does not have what? Sovereignty. But a nation state have what? Sovereignty. So you could take note that what? A state have what? Sovereignty. A nation does not have sovereignty, but a nation state have what? Sovereignty. So nation state is synonymous with sovereignty. So the answer right here is what? Sovereignty. So on the second question, we found out that what? A fundamental component of political what? Culture is A. Economic value, B. Social value, C. Community value, and D. Family value. A fundamental what? Component of political culture is A. Economic values, B. Social values, C. Community values, and D. Family values. We're told that what? Political culture have to do with what? The attitude, the norms, and what? Behaviors that what? That guide that. So any what? Political behaviors is being governed by what? Political culture. Then for this political culture, you have to take note that what? Fundamental components of political culture is mainly what? Social values. Not that we don't have other values, but it is majorly what? Social values. So the right answer here is social values. A fundamental component, a main component of what? Political culture is what? Social values. So take note of what? Social values as the right answer. Not that we can't say community structure, family values, or economic values, but the major what? Component of political culture is what? Is social values. Then moving to the third question, a form of what? Oligarchy in which what? The gifted people at what? The aim of affair is called what? A. Gerontocracy, B. Aristocracy, C. Plutocracy, and D. What? Theocracy. Looking at the first one they gave here, gerontocracy. What is gerontocracy? Gerontocracy is a form of government in which what? The elderly people rule, in which the what? The older people rule. So in which the older people rule is what? Gerontocracy. So we can't say gerontocracy is the answer here. But looking at the second one here, we saw that what? Aristocracy. Aristocracy is what? A form of government in which what? The best citizens rule, or in which what? The best citizens, or in which what? The nobility class rules, or in which what? The government of the few for the benefit of all. So any class in which there is a what? The government of the few for the benefit of all is what? Aristocracy. But looking to this other question given here in the C, we saw that what? Plutocracy. What is plutocracy? Plutocracy is a government of the what? The wealthy class, government of the what? The rich people. So when the rich people rule, it is called what? Plutocracy. On the D here, we saw that what? Theocracy. So what is theocracy? Theocracy is a government of the what? The priestly class. A government of the priestly class is what? Theocracy. A government ruled by what? Bishop or priest is called what? Theocracy. Or you could say that what? A government in which what? The political and religious what? Head rule is called what? Theocracy. A government in which what? The political and what? Religious head rule is called what? Theocracy. We find that in the Pope of what? The Roman Catholic is a good example of what? Theocracy. The Pope or the Bishop in the Vatican City, a good example of what? Theocracy. A government in which the political and religious head rule is called what? Theocracy. Or government of the richly, or government of the what? Priestly class is called what? theocracy. Or we say government of the bishop. The government of the bishop is sometimes called what? Episcopocracy. Epistocracy. So epistocracy is government of the bishop. So looking at this question, a form of oligarchy in which the gifted people are the aim of affairs is called what? Aristocracy. Because aristocracy being what coined by Aristotle. Aristotle said that what? Aristo means what? Aris means what? Best. And crazy means what? Rule. So rule of the best is what? Aristocracy. And aristocracy does not actually mean just the richly class or just what? The intellectuals. Aristocracy connotes anybody that is what? That is good. As long as you are good and you come from any walk of life, you are what? You are deemed a best citizen. So a best citizen could either be what? An intellectual, could either be what? A priestly class, could either be a what? An intellectual, could either be a military class. So as long as the person is good, is regarded to be what? A best citizen. So a form of oligarchy in which the gifted people are the aim of affair is called what? Aristocracy. So looking at this question, number 4 question, we found out that what? A state that is ruled by an elected is A, empire. Is empire correct? B, monarchy. Is monarchy correct? C, a republic. And D, what? Plutocracy. A state that is ruled by an elected is A, empire. B, monarchy. C, republic. And D, what? Plutocracy. So looking at the first one, empire. What is an empire? An empire was a collection of what? Kingdoms. And an empire usually was controlled by what? An emperor. So a country that a kingdom that is controlled by what? An emperor is called what? An empire. So an empire is what? A very large what? Kingdoms or collections of kingdoms. So we cannot say, okay, empire is the answer. So empire is wrong. Monarchy. What is a monarchy? A monarchy is where we see what? Traditional rulers being what? Head. When we should what? See traditional rulers head in that position is a good example of what? Monarchy. And monarchy is any form of what? Government in which what? Traditional rulers are the what? Aim of affairs. But republic is what? A government that is ruled by what? Elected representative. A non-monarchical what? Form of government is what? Republic. So a non-monarchical form of government is what? Republic. A republic is where we could say, okay, a state that is what? Freely independent. A state that have what? Gained what? Independence is what? A republic. So any state that have gained independence is a republic, or a state of elected representative is a republic, or a non-monarchical what? Form of government is a republic. But then looking at plutocracy. Plutocracy is a government of what? Wealthy people. A government of what? The richly class. So we cannot say, okay, the richly class is what? Plutocracy. So a state that is ruled by elected is called what? A republic. In our number 5 question, we can see that what? A true democracy in the modern sense exists where A, the elect rule, where the elect rule is called what? Plutocracy or aristocracy. So it can never be the answer. An elected representative rule, okay, that is a good word. Indirect democracy, or say, okay, modern democracy, representative democracy. Majority of the people vote is a good form of what? Democracy. The majority of the people rule is a good form of what? Democracy. But the right answer for pick here is what? Elected representative rule. So looking at number 6, in the parliamentary system of government, when the legislation passes a vote of no confidence on the executive, a legislation commences legal proceeding, the executive is required to resign, or the executive is expected to go on what? Suspension, or the legislation ceases to what? Trust the executive. So looking at the first one, what we have here is a topic in government called what? Collective what? Responsibility. And the collective responsibility, everybody shares the blames collectively. Everybody will share the praises what? Collectively. So in the collective responsibility, the people are what? Or the members of the executive are what? Responsible to the legislation or the parliament. So in this question now, when there passes a vote of no confidence, it simply means that what? The people are expected to what? Or the members of the executive are expected to what? To resign. So the right answer to pick here is it A, legislation commences legal proceeding? No. B, executive is required to resign. Or C, executive is required to what? Go on suspension. Or D, legislation ceases to trust the executive. The right answer to pick here is what? Executive is expected to resign. So number 7 question, the legislative body of the United States of America is A, Council. B. Parliament. C. Congress. And D. National Assembly. The legislative body of the United States of America is, in the United States of America, we know something that what? United States of America have what? Two houses. They have what? House of Senate and House of Representatives. And in Britain, they have what? The House of Lords and the House of Commons. But then, looking at this, the legislative body of the United States of America is it council? It can never be council. Parliament. Parliament is for the word the Britain. Congress. Congress is for America. And National Assembly is for Nigeria. So we say, okay, the right answer to pick here is what? Is Congress. So looking at this, we can see that what? In America, they have what? Two houses, which is what? The House of Senate and the House of Representatives. And in Britain, the Britain have what? The House of Lords and the House of Commons. In Nigeria, the National Assembly, which is called what? The House of Senate and the House of Representatives. In Germany, they have what? The Bundestag and the Bundesrat. And in Israel, they have what? The Knesset. So all these are what? Various what? Legislative bodies in different countries. So looking at this 8th question, unicameralism is a feature of in legislation. In legislation, we're taught what? That legislations are what? Law-making bodies, right? As since legislation are law-making bodies, we're taught that we have two forms or two types of what? Legislation. We have the unicameral legislation and the what? And the bicameral legislation. The unicameral legislation simply means what? In which what? There is what? Two what? Or one houses. Uni means what? One houses. So there's what? There's one houses or one house. So it simply means what? That there's what? One house. But the bicameral legislation simply means that there's what? That there's two houses. Right? So we can now see that what unicameralism is a feature of the A. Ghana, B. Israel, C. United Kingdom, D. United States. So looking at this now, we can say, okay, is it Ghana? Is it Sierra Leone? Is it Israel? Is it United Kingdom or what? United States? So I have a formula called what? GGKS. GGKS. GGKS simply means what? Ghana, Gambia, Kenya, and what? And Sierra Leone. So Ghana, Gambia, Kenya, and Sierra Leone is a good example of what? Unicameralism. So unicameralism is a feature of the Ghana. Because in Israel, we say that, okay, Israel have what? Two houses. United Kingdom have what? Two houses. United States have what? Two houses. In United Kingdom, they have what? The House of Lords and the House of Commons. In the United States, they have what? The House of Senate and the House of Representatives. So in the next question, they said, the upper house in most federal states is created. Okay. In this question now, we can see, okay, the upper house in most federal states is created to enable experienced elders make inputs to governance. B. Ensure equalities of federating. Or C. Oversee and share the lower house. D. Prevent essence of the executive. Why did they make legislation? Legislation was made to what? To make laws, right? Legislation was made to what? To represent the people. Legislation was made to what? To perform what? Oversight functions, right? To initiate based on the rest or to approve based on the rest. But then the upper house was created to ensure what? Equalities of what? Federating. That's why in Nigeria, for instance, now we have what? 109 what houses in the what? In the Senate. And in now 109 houses of the what? Upper house, which is the Senate, we have what? 3 what? Senators from each state. We have what? 3 senators from each state. Plus 1 in Abuja. Plus 1 in what? Abuja. So 3 times what? 36 will give us what? 108. Plus 1 will give us what? 109. So we can now say that we have what? 109 senators in Nigeria. The upper house, which is the Senate, base themselves on what? Equality and what? Proportionality. But in the House of Representatives, it is based on what? Size and population. But the House of Representatives is based on what? Size and population. That's why we can see that what the House of Representatives have about 360 what? House of Representative members. Whereby we can see that what? Kano, Lagos have what? One of the largest what? Numbers of seats in the what? House of Representatives, because they have what? More units or what? More local governments or more what? Constituencies. So in number 10 questions, we ask, in which of the following system is the power the component unit more than that of the what? The central government. We are asking this question: in which of the following system is the power, the component unit, more than that of the what? Central government? So to see the first question: A, confederal system; B, monarchical system; C, unitary system; and D, federal system. Looking at the first one here, confederal system. What is a confederal system? A confederal system is a union of what? Loose federation. It's a union of a league of nations or sovereign nations which come together to federate in order to what? Protect their what? Common interests. So they come together to what? To federate in order to protect their common interests. And to see that what? In a confederal system, they are what? Loose federations. And in a confederal system, a good example is what? Your Senegambia. And your Senegambia was in what year? 1981 or 1982 to 1989. And this Senegambia, we could see that each state or each unit have what right to secede at any time. And since each unit have right to secede at any time, it brings about a weak government. It leads to what? Weak government, and leads to what? Political instability. If what any nations or any states could what secede or what break away at any time. So a good example in which the component unit is more than that of the central government is the confederal system. But talking of monarchical system is a form of government in which what the traditional rulers rules, right? On which what the traditional rulers rule. A good example is your England, your Denmark, right? And your unitary system is what a form of government in which what powers are concentrated in the what national body and the what central or the what central body or one body. But then the federal system is a system of government in which what the component unit is different from that of the what the central unit, because we find out that in a federal government system of government is whereby what there's a division between what the central government and that of the what the component unit. There's a constitutional what division between that of what the central government and the component unit. So the right answer to pick here is what your confederal system, because the confederal system there's a superiority of the what the component unit over what the central government. For instance, let me give an instance. In Nigeria, for instance, we could say what Edo State is bigger in power to that of the what to that of what Abuja, or we say what Oyo State is bigger in power to that of what Abuja. So component units have more power than that of what the central government. So moving on to the 11th question. One of the great tenets of fascist doctrine is that the leader is A, subordinate to the norms of the society; B, supreme relative to the constitution; C, subordinate to the laws of the state; and D, weak relative to the constitution. So the first thing you should take note of here is fascism. What is fascism? Fascism is a philosophy that believes in aggressive nationalism or militant nationalism as a form of what totalitarianism, because we all know that what totalitarianism simply means that what a one ruler rules above the what constitution, where what one ruler have control over the life, the well-being of the citizens. So totalitarianism is a form of what fascism and Nazism. But here they gave us of fascism. What is fascism? Fascism is believed to be this man called who? Benito Mussolini. Benito what? Mussolini. Who is Benito Mussolini? Benito Mussolini in 1922 to 1948 theory believed that what fascism, they should be what? Anti-democracy. They should be what? Anti-democracy, anti-communism. And fascism, they believe on what? Believe that what? War should be glorified and peace should be what? Reputed, or peace should be what? Hated. So we see that what fascism, one of the great tenets of fascist doctrine is that the leader is what? Supreme relative to the constitution. The ruler is above the constitution, because fascism is a good example of what? A police state. And we all know what's a police state. A police state are dictatorial government. And fascism is a good example of what? A police state. So the answer here is what? Supreme relative to the constitution. Fascist doctrine is weak related to the constitution. Yes, no. Weak related to the constitution, because in this country, for instance, degrees are not what the degrees are not superior to the constitution. Rather, the constitution is superior to what degrees. But in a fascist government or in a dictatorial government, it is what superior relative to the constitution. A fascist government believes on what superior relative to the constitution. So on the 12th question, in a cabinet system of power is exercised by the A, dominant party, B, head of government, C, president, and D, monarch. In a cabinet system of power, in a cabinet system of government, in a cabinet system of power, power is exercised by A, dominant party, B, head of government, C, president, and D, monarch. Cabinet system of government is what we know as what Westminster or what parliamentary system of government. And in the parliamentary system of government, the prime minister has what power. The prime minister is also called who? In primus what? Inter pares. Primus inter pares. That is what the prime minister is what first among all. The prime minister has what absolute power over what other minister because he is the head of the minister. And in the cabinet system of power or in the cabinet system of government, power is exercised by A, the dominant party, B, the head of government, C, the president, and D, the monarch. The head of government is what? The prime minister. Head of state is what? The governor general, or we say the Queen of England. So the head of government here is what? The prime minister. In the cabinet system of government and the cabinet system of government, power is exercised by the head of government, which is called what? The prime minister. Primus inter pares, which is first among all. So in the question number 13, they said that what? The principle of separation of power is best practice in. There's something you have to take note for separation of power. And what you have to take note for separation of power, separation of power is believed to be this man called who? Charles Baron de Montesquieu. In what? 1748, and he wrote a book called what? Esprit de Louis, Spirit of Law. And he said that what? If the rights, liberty, and freedom of a citizen should be what? Maintained and guaranteed, then these three governmental bodies should be what? Separated and entrusted to different people to administer. So we see that the principle of separation of power is well practiced in presidential system of government. But if it is in a parliamentary system of government, it is fusion of power. If it's a parliamentary system of government, it is what? Fusion of power. In a military system of government, it is fusion of power. In a parliamentary system of government, it's a fusion of power. What are fusions of power? Fusions of power simply means that what? The executive and legislative powers are what? Are fused together into one. We could see it in a military government. We could also see it in what? Parliamentary system of government. But then, the principle of what? Separation of power is best practiced in a presidential system of government because the president has powers, right? But the president is different from what? The speakers. The president is different from what? The Senate makers or the Senate president. The president is different from what? The judiciary. So the principle of separation of power is best practice in a presidential system of government. And in the presidential system of government, we have what? Individual what? Responsibility. In the parliamentary system of government, we have what? Collective responsibility. Individual responsibilities entails that what? The ministers are responsible to the what? To the president. But collective responsibility entails that what? The ministers are what? Responsible to the what? Parliament or legislation. That is collective responsibility. Everybody will bear the brains, right? Okay. Everybody will bear the brains. And if there's what? Any problem caused by what? One person, everybody will take what? Accountable for it. But for short actions. But in an individual responsibility, any individual who does wrong, he bear the blame what? Individually. So moving on to 14, a typical form of what? Delegated legislation is A, bylaw, B, act, C, degrees, and D, base. Looking at this question now, we will see that what? A typical form of what? Delegated legislation, we will see two answers here, right? But they ask a typical form of delegated legislation is in forms of delegated legislations, we were taught what? Ordinance, we were taught what? Bylaws, we were taught what? Act of Parliament, statutory orders, special procedure orders. All these are what? Forms of what? Delegated legislation. And delegated legislation, we were told that any law made by the what? Made by any other body other than the what? Legislation. And they are what? Approved or sanctioned by the what? By the legislation. And this delegated legislation, they are being made into what? Legislation through a what? An act of Parliament, through the what? Act of the legislation. But then a typical form of delegated legislation is what? Bylaw. Because what is bylaw? Bylaws are any laws made by the what local government, any law made by what statutory bodies, any law made by what public corporations are what bylaws. What are acts? Act is any law being made by what the national government or the national legislations, the state or regional legislations, having what undergoes what different stages. So any law made by what by the National Assembly or any law made by the what state legislation are what are acts. But decrees are what laws made by what federal military government. Any law made by what federal military government are what decrees. Then what is B? B are proposed legislation made into what law. So any proposed legislation which is expected to what undergo the 5 or 6 different stages before they are being made a B is what B. Or any what law, prima facie what law. Any prima facie law is what a B. Any law which is expected to be what made into what making is called what a B. So any law in the making is called what a B. So the typical forms of delegated legislation is bylaw. So in the 15th question here, we will say that what the right of a citizen can be withdrawn by the state if the person is A, pronounced dead, B, oppose the government violently, C, is convicted of a serious crime, or D, leaves the country permanently. If we could share the Nigerian constitution, we'll see that what we'll see citizenship there, and in Nigerian constitution, anybody who committed what a serious crime, his citizenship is withdrawn if he gets that citizenship through what naturalization. So the right of a citizen can be what withdrawn by the state if the person is what pronounced what dead, no. If he's what opposed the government violently, no. If he's convicted of a serious crime, yes. And D, he leaves the country permanently. So the answer here is what is convicted of a serious crime. So anybody who's convicted of a serious crime, like any felony crime, is what his citizen is withdrawn. So you should take note that when a person commits any what grievous what crime, his citizen is what withdrawn. So in the 16th question, we could say that what an electoral process in which candidates are selected for elective offices by the party members is A, general election, B, primary election, C, is convicted of a serious crime, or D, leaves the country permanently. An electoral process in which what candidates are selected for what elective offices by party members. What you have to take note for here is by party what members. An election done by party members are called what? They are called what? Primary election. Any election done by what? Party members are called what? Primary election. Because in any election, we have different forms of election. We have the by-election. By-elections are elections meant to what fill a vacant what seat. Maybe when a party member, when a standard bearer of the party was there, then they will not do what a by-election to fill that what vacancy. Or whether in resign, they will do what a by-election to fill that what vacancy. But in a general election is where everybody from what all political parties come together to what to contest for that what position. That's what general election. But here, primary elections are elections that is what conducted within what the political what party. By party members. Party members here vote. And in Edo State or in Nigeria, we see that what different what elections or different primary elections are held. Like 4 or 5 person coming out for the position of what governor. Then one person will then have the what paid for the what for the standard bearer of that what party. So all these are called what primary what election. So you have to take note of what primary election. Take note of what your general election. Take note of your by-elections, and take note of other elections like your direct election or your indirect elections. So moving to the 17th question here. In theory, one of the advantages of the one-party system is that A, it guarantees what social justice, B, eliminate intra-party conflict, C, promote greater participation in government, or D, serve as an instrument of national what integration. We're taught what party system, and they told us that what party systems are what arrangement of parties, of arrangement of political parties in a country, or a political framework in which what political parties are what constitutionally allowed or legally what allowed to take part in what political processes. That is what party system, or a numbers of political parties in a country is what party system. Then they told us that what we have different types of what party system. We have the one-party system, the two-party system, the three-party system, the multi-party system, and the zero-party system. But here they told us what one-party system. One-party system. What is one-party system? One-party system entails that what only one political party are legally and constitutionally what allowed to take part in political processes. We could see that a good example of one-party system was the one by what Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, which was called what TANU, and the other one by Kwame Nkrumah, which was called what, the CPP, Conservative People's Party, by what Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. Then we could see that what an advantages of one-party system, you have to take note that one-party system leads to what political stability. One-party system leads to what national what integration. One-party system leads to what political what stability. One-party system leads to what absence of what favoritism and what sectionalism. One-party system leads to what national what integration. Because in a country where there's one party, it brings what government closer to the people, right? So we consider that one-party system serves as a what instrument of what national what integration. So one of the major characteristics or one of the major advantages of what one-party system that it leads to what national what integration. It leads to what stability. It leads to what national what integration. So this question they gave us here, it is on what government, and we'll see in a mode of what operation by what pressure groups. And they ask a question here: a tactic employed by pressure groups to achieve their aim is A, lobbying, B, memorandum, C, propaganda, and D, what electionary what campaign. A tactic employed by what pressure groups to achieve their objective is: what is lobbying, what is memorandum, what is propaganda, and what is electionary what campaign. So we could see that here, memorandums can never be the answer, because memorandums are just like an agreement of understanding. And propaganda simply means what when you are what shading what sediment, when you are what shading sediment in order to win some votes to yourself. That's what is called what propaganda. Electionary campaigns are what just normal campaigns. But here lobbying and what are one of the tactics employed by what pressure groups to achieve them. Because in lobbying you tend to what influence, you tend to convince that person to vote for that political party. That's what a tactic employed by what pressure groups to achieve their objective is called what lobbying. Number 19 question they ask: which of the following is a main function for the civil service? A, mobilizing what grassroots support for the government. B, implementing government policy. C, supporting the what party in power. And D, allocating what resources to the federative what unit. What is civil service? Civil service. What is civil service? Civil service, what do they do? Civil service as an integral part of the executive. They are what? They are saddled with the responsibility to what? Implement governmental decision, formulate governmental decision from time to time of what? From day to day what? Operating of the what? Of the government establishment. So we will now see that our civil service as an integral part of the executive, because civil service belongs to the executive. And what they do majorly is to implement governmental decision. What they do majorly is to implement or formulate what governmental decision. So they ask which of the following is a main function of the civil services. The civil services, people who work in civil services are called what civil servants. And as we see, portion of civil servants are to implement governmental decision because they act as a part of the executive. They belong to the what federal government or they belong to the state government, but they act as a part of the what the executive. So you should take note of that the civil service are part of the executive. They belong to the what executive. So which of the following is a main function of the civil services? So what your answer should be here is implement governmental decision. Implement what governmental decision. So take note of that. And in this question they ask here, public opinion can be measured through that. Public opinion can be measured through that. What is public opinion? We're told that what the general views, the general beliefs, the general judgment of people regarding what governmental polity are what public what opinion. That is the people's view, the what the aggregate views, the collective views, the what the mass views, the what the dominant views of people are called what public opinion. But then we have what the measurement of public opinion or the determinations of public opinion. And I have a formula for that called what? Poem Q arrow. Poem Q arrow. Poem Q arrow. And what is Poem Q arrow? Poem Q arrow represents what? Public what? Response or political reactions. Public response or political reactions. We have what? Opinion poll. We have referendums. We have election. We have mass media. We have quota sampling. Quota sampling. We have what? Representative groups. So we have what? Public what? Responses or political reactions. We have opinion poll. We have what? Referendums. We have what? Elections. We have what? Mass media. We have quota sampling. Spelled Quota. Quota. Sampling. Then we have what? Representative what? Groups. That is what the measurement of determinations of public opinions. And then they say public opinion can be gauged, public opinion can be measured through dash A, rumors. Can public opinion be measured through rumors? B, negotiations. C, strike actions. And D, what? Referendums. So with this formula given here, the point when Q arrow, public what? Responses, opinion pool, referendums, election, mass media, quota sampling, and representative groups. We could see that the answer here is what? Referendums. So public opinion can be measured through what? Referendums. On the 21st question, we have what? Who was the political head of the old Oyo Empire? A, Alafi, B, Basharu, C, Aremo, and D, what? Oyomisi. So looking at this question, who is or who was the political head of the old Oyo Empire? A, Alafi, B, Basharu, C, Aremo, and D, Oyomisi. Who is the Alafi? The Alafi is the what? Is the political leader in the what? Old Oyo Empire. And as the political leader, is regarded to be the what? The king. And the Alafi, he holds the title of what? The traditional ruler. And we all know that what the Alafi is a what? Is a constitutional what? Monarch. And as a constitutional monarch, he also have what? Other rulers. Because we have in government, we have what? Chief and council and chief in council. Chief and what? Council and what? And chief in council. And chief in council. Chief and council simply means that the king must rule together with what? His members, his council. And chief in council simply means that what? The chief rule without what? Involvement of what? Of the council of the members. So the Alafi is a good example for chief and council. And as a chief and council, the Alafi have what? Authority. The Alafi also have some people who rule together with him, who is called what? The Oyomisi. The Oyomisi are the what? The council of 7 members and is headed by a man called who? The Basharu. The Basharu is what? The prime minister. The Aremo is what? Also a traditional ruler, but though the Aremo and Basharu and Oyomisi are not what? The answer here. Because who was the political head of the old Oyo Empire? The answer here is what? The Alafi. Let's move on to the next question, the 22 question. The Igbo political system was based on A, Umuada, B, age grade, C, family ties, and D, Umuada. The Igbo political system, the Igbos are regarded to be what? A good example of what? A democratical system. And as a democratical system, it simply involved that what? The Igbo practice what? A direct democracy. We all know that when talking about direct democracy simply means that what? Everybody take part in what? Decision making. There's what? Everybody what? Reach an agreement through what? Create consensus. But then the Igbo political system are what? They practice what to call what? A direct democracy, a what? A sedimentary democracy, a sedimentary structure, a fragmented structure, and a cephalous structure. And a cephalous structure simply means that what? The Igbo was make no kings. That what? Undi Ishi Eze. Igbo what? Makes no kings. And that is the Igbo practice what? A decentralized system of government. And as a decentralized system of government, the Igbos are usually based on what? Different what? Structure. Because we have what? We have the Umuada, we have the Umuana, we have the Amala, the council of elders. We also have what? The Opala, who is also the judge, the elders of the kindred, and other what? Ruler, others what? Leaders. But then the Igbo political system was based on A, Umuada, B, age grade, C, family ties, and D, what? Umuana. So in this kind of question, some people will just choose age grade, sometimes people choose family ties. But I believe the right answer here is family ties. The Igbo political system was based on what? Family ties. So moving over to the 23 question, the arrow grade system in Igbo land was A, imperial organization. Talking about imperial organization, it traces back to what? The emperors, like Japan, Ethiopia, all those practices. We have what? An imperial system. But we're not talking of what? Imperial system. The Igbo were not what? Imperial system. The arrow grade system was not what? Based on what? An imperial organization and imperial system. Then the number 2 is what? Religious organization. C, commercial organization, and D, political what? Organization. Who is the Arrow? The Arrow people were what? People who live in a city or a place called what? Arrow. And these people were what? Traders. And these people had a god or a what? Had a long juju or a long sham called what? The Arrow. The what? The Igbeni Ukpabi. The Ugbeni what? Ukpabi. Or we could say what? The Ugbeni Ukpabi. And this long juju sham was what? Was a sham which was what? Which belonged to the what? The Awo people, the people of Awoshuku. And as this sham, these people were what? They used this long juju to make what? To make the other neighboring community to fear them, because this Awoshuku, okay, since the people know that, oh, these people have what? A long juju sham, other communities or other neighboring communities have moved around them. They fear this was the people of Awo. So the people of Awo were majorly what? Traders. And as traders, these people what? They could have what? Access to other what? Neighboring communities without what? Without any form of what? Restriction. If for instance now they want to go to another community, they will not was prevent them from going to another community, simply because these people have what? Ugbeni Ukpabi, a long judicial or a long sham. So then the Awo grade system in Igbo land was A, imperial organization, B, religious organization, C, commercial organization, D, political organization. Sometimes some past questions might put political organization, some past questions might put what? Religious organization. But I just want to tell you guys that the right answer to pick is religious what? Organization. The Awo grade system in Igbo land was based on what? Religious what? Organization. So looking at the next question, France introduced the policy of what? Assimilation in our colonies, primarily to what? A, discourage what? Them from religious killings. B, teach them the art of leadership. C, change their way of life. And D, give them a sound what? Education. France introduced the policy of assimilation. A, to what? Discourage them from ritual killing. B, teach them the art of leadership. C, change their way of life and give them a sound education. So when talking about French policy, remember what? The French policy of what? Assimilation. The French policy of what? Assimilation. And the French policy of assimilation was in what year? It was between, let's say, 1914s to 1918s. And this French policy of assimilation was simply used to what? By the French people to what? To substitute Africa what? Traditional what? Values and belief system. And this French policy of assimilation was used to what? To remove any form of what? Africa what? Way of life. We say, okay, this French policy of assimilation is similar to what we call what? Acculturation, which is what? An art of what? Cultural what? Alienation. Because we saw that what? The French people tend to what? Isolate the African belief by what? In introducing what? European way of life to them. So the people were not happy with what? The French policy of what? Assimilation. Because the French policy of assimilation was meant to what? Frenchify what? Africans. They made to what? Frenchify Africans. They made to what? Turn what? African people into what? Frenchmen. So African people are now what? Seen as what? French subjects or French citizens, as the case may be. So the first introduced the policy of what? Association again. What is policy of association? The policy of association was meant to what? Recognize what? African belief system together with what? The European way of life, or together with what? European culture. So French policy of association entails what? Preservation, entails what? Recognition of African belief system. And French policy of what? Assimilation entails what? Or represents what? What we call what? Substitution of African belief system. So we also have what? The French policy, the indigenous policy. And indigenous policy was used by what? The French people to what? Imprison what? Africans. Was used by the French people to what? Imprison Africans. African people was what? Arbitrarily what? Arrested and what? Trial without what? Without following the normal what? Procedure or the normal what? Court processing. So we could say that what? The indigenous policy was abolished in 1946. If you check your JAMB past question in my street, indigenous policy was abolished in 1946. But the French policy of what? Locadere, the French policy of what? Locadere, Loicadre. It was met by what? It was made by what? The French Parliament met what? Give what? Regional what? Autonomy to what? The French people. It was given by what? the French Parliament to what give what regional what autonomy to the French people. So you take note that it was introduced in 1956. So it might be asked, the local there was introduced in what 1956, additional policy was introduced in what year, was abolished in what year 1946. The French policy of what assimilation was introduced between what let's say 1914 to 1918. And the French policy of assimilation was introduced, let's say, around 1920s. So all these are the things you have to take note of what the French policy of what assimilation. So moving back to this question, or coming to this question, the French policy of what assimilation in our colonies was primarily meant to what change their way of life. Was primarily meant to substitute their way of life. So take note of that, change their way of life. So on this one, they asked this question: the foremost British trading company on the West Africa coast was it John Hus and Son? No. Was it Royal Nigerian Company? No. Was it the Levers Brothers? No. Was it the United Africa Company? So talking about John Hus and Sons, you go back to exploration, right? People who came to explore Nigeria. Talking about the Lever Brothers, talk about what John and Richard, right? Richard Levers. But those are not the right answer we have to pick. So the right answer here could be, let's say, B and what and D. So the foremost British trading company on the West Africa coast was B, Royal Niger Company, D, United Africa Company. Remember that the Royal Niger Company, remember this man called George Thomangodi. George what? Thomangodi. George Thomangodi. And who is George Thomangodi? George Thomangodi was a man who was given what? A charter. What is a charter? Charters are just official documents which are given and may be signed by the what? Let's say the Queen of England or the what? Or the King in Britain at that time. So it was a charter, like official document or official what? Containing what? An agreement. Or we are giving you what? This land control or this what? Company. So the Royal Niger Company was made a charter or was given in what year? 1886 so let's say 1899, 1886 to 1899. And from 1886 to 1899, we saw that George Thomangodi was given what charge over what the direct administration of Nigeria in 1886 to what 1899. And in December 31st, 1899, the contract was what revoked, and we saw that what the next year, or which was the next day, which was January 1st, 1900, the British government took what control of Nigeria what territory. So the former British trading company on the West African coast was Royal Nigerian Company, because Royal Nigerian Company was from 1886 to what 1899. But Royal Nigerian Company was changed around 1879 from a United Africa Company to Royal Niger Company. So you have to take note of the date. So the right answer here to pick is what? Royal Niger Company. So coming to 26, which of these rulers resisted what colonial rule and was deported to Calabar? Which of these was colonial rulers or these traditional rulers resisted what colonial rule and was deported to Calabar? King Jaja of Opobo. I believe everyone knows King Jaja of Opobo. King Jaja of Opobo belongs to the Shekiri and was a member, was the head of the Manila Pepe House or the Anna Pepe House at that time, and 1869. And coming to King Jaja of Opobo, we know that what the British government brought what a gunboat diplomacy. A gunboat diplomacy simply means that what, okay, you guys should what enter the boat, and when they will enter the boat, they will now what deport them to what another what country. That was a gunboat diplomacy being used by what the Europeans to deceive African leaders, to deceive traditional rulers. So they use this gunboat diplomacy. And in 1887, King Jaja of Opobo was deported to West Indies. 1887, King Jaja of Opobo was deported to West Indies. We have what King Kosoko of what Lagos. King Kosoko of Lagos also resisted what the British penetration, and because he resisted the British penetration, he was also deported in 1894. And we have Oba Ovurame. Ovurame, because he resisted what the British penetration into what the Benin territory, he was deported to Calabar. And when he was deported to Calabar, we also have what King Dosomu. King Dosomu, we should know that King Dosomu, during that time, we saw what Nigeria was made a Lagos colony. In 1861, Nigeria was made a Lagos colony during the time of King Dosomu. who was what the son of what Oba Akitoye. So you should take note which of these rulers resisted what colonial rule and was deported to what to Calabar. The answer here is Oba Avorame. We all know Oba Avorame, who was deported to Calabar and later died in 1914. So the question they asked here, Nigerian nationalist was described as a two-faced. Is it David Ricardo? Can never be David Ricardo. They ask again, is it John Pejasi or Edward Wilmot Brandy? So, talking about the fathers of African nationalism, talking about the fathers of what African nationalism, you have to make mention of what John Pejasi and Edward Wilmot Brandy. But talking of the real father or the who was majorly guided to be the father of what African nationalism, some scholars might say no, it's not what it's not John Pejasi and Edward Wilmot Brandy, but rather it was Kwame Nkrumah. But we should know that Kwame Nkrumah described what Edward Wilmot Brandy as the true father of African nationalism. The father of Nigerian nationalism is about what Macaulay. So the father of what African nationalism is Edward Wilmot Brandy, not what Kwame Nkrumah, as what described by most popular political scholars we know. So Nigerian nationalism was described as a two-faced Dawu. Edward Wilmot Brandy would be the right answer to pick. But some scholars will say it's John P. Johnson. But I should tell you that picking, you should pick what Edward Wilmot Brandy first before you pick what John P. Johnson. Edward Wilmot Brandy focuses on what two different types of what nationalism. That is the cultural nationalism and the political nationalism. And John P. Johnson also focuses on what the cultural nationalism too. And so, from the Nigerian nationalism was described as a two-faced by what Edward Wilmot Brandy. So, one major weakness of the independence constitution is that A, empower Britain to rule. B, fail to provide the country with full sovereignty. C, gave power to the Supreme Court in Nigeria. And D, gave total independence to Nigeria. One of the major weaknesses of the independence constitution was that it failed to give full independence to Nigeria. It failed to give full independence to Nigeria. Because we saw that in 1960 when Nigeria gained independence, in 1960, October 1st, then the Europeans also came to Nigeria and said, okay, let us sign a part. Let us sign an agreement. Which agreement? The Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part. The Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part. The Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part is an agreement between what the Europeans and the Nigerian leaders, which was Obafemi Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa. And this agreement was that the Europeans wanted to test their aircraft on our airspace. And so our Nigerian leaders accepted it in 1960. And when our Nigerian leaders accepted it in 1960, white men or Igbo men will come to Nigeria and they'll bring their airplanes to Nigeria to test it. And then our Nigerian students living in diaspora or living abroad, they said that no, they don't want any form of control over Nigeria airspace or Nigeria territory. So they revolted against it, and that law led to an abolishment of this Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part in 1960. So Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part lasted from 1960 to 1962, and it was resisted by our educated elite, or you could say pressure groups, or was resisted by our student groups. So this Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part was resisted by our student group, and that brought about an abolishment of this Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part, of this Anglo-Nigeria Defense Agreement. So this Anglo-Nigeria Defense Part was then abolished, and in the next year, 1963, Nigeria was not made a republic. So Nigeria was not made a republic in 1963, which gave Nigeria a full independence, Because I told you guys that republic means two things. Republic means a government of elected representatives, and republic also means a government that is sovereign, a government that is fully independence. So one of the major weaknesses of the independence constitution in Nigeria was that it failed to provide the country with full independence, with full sovereignty. So on the 29th question here, the first lawmaking body in Nigeria after amalgamation was, is it the Regional Assembly? Is it the Nigeria Council? Is it the Legislative Council? Is it the National Assembly? So the first lawmaking body in Nigeria after the amalgamation is 1914. So after the amalgamation is 1940 or 1915. So we say, okay, after the amalgamation. So the first what making body was Nigeria Council, by what, which is also called what Lugadan Council. But some people will say no, that Legislative Council or Nigeria Council is not the first law-making bodies, which is also argued by some political scholars. But you should know that what the first law-making bodies which JAMB or any examiner wants you to pick is Nigeria Council. But some will say no, it is what Legislative Council by who? By Clifford. It was Legislative Council by Clifford in 1922. Because we all know we have different what constitutional bodies or different in our constitutional development. We taught in our government textbook. They told us we have what Nigeria Council, we have the Legislative Council, we have what the Richard Constitution, we have the Mampasi Constitution, we also have what other constitutions before we then move toward the Independence Council. So the first one you should take note of is the Nigeria Council by what Lord Lugard. Lord Lugard what made this Nigeria Council in 1914, and this although this Nigeria Council was not what fully what representative of all Nigerians, because only few people or few cities were members of this what Nigeria Council. So you should take note that the first lawmaking body in Nigeria after amalgamation was what Nigeria Council. So the description of ministers as chief executive and accounting officer was recommended by a commission headed by, is it Dr. Phillips? Is it Jeremy Udoji? Is it Samuel Adebo or S.J. Cookie? So the right answer to pick here is Dr. Phillips. If we start explaining much on this, we won't get to the next what question. So you should take note that the designation of what minister as chief executive and accounting what officer was recommended by a commission known as the Dr. Phillips Commission of the 1988. On the 31st question, a major shortcoming of the Ombudsman is A. Lack of executive power to enforce decision. B. Lack of adequate resources. C. Its inability to restrain. And D. Lack of clear-cut mandate. What is Ombudsman? Ombudsman is also called what? Your Public Complaint Commission. Your Public Complaint Commission. That is your PCC. Your what? Your PCC. And Ombudsman's what? Public Complaint Commission. We're told that what Ombudsman was established in 1809 in Sweden, and Ombudsman was then now what renamed by Murtala Mohammed to what Public Complaint Commission in 1975 to 1977, as the case may be. So a major shortcoming of the Ombudsman is that the Ombudsman is regarded to be what? A toothless bulldog. That is, they have what mad, but they cannot what back. And since they have what mad, they cannot back. They have no power to what enforce decisions. So we could say that what a major shortcoming of the Ombudsman is lack of what executive power to enforce decisions. So the right answer to pick here is what? Lack of what executive power to enforce decisions. So on the 32nd question, we could see that what one of the short points of the what multi-party system in Nigeria Fourth Republic is A. Whether anti-democracy campaign, C. B. The provision for bicameral legislation, and C. Government interference, and D. Wider political what? Participation. We know what is one-party system, what is two-party system, and multi-party system. A multi-party system is different as what? Whereby two or more political parties are what constitutionally and legally what allowed to take part in political processing. And one of the advantages of what political party system or multi-party system is that it allows for what wider participation. It is what more democratic. It is what most it brings about what more stability in governance. So consider what one of the strong points of the multi-party system in Nigeria Fourth Republic, that it allows for what wider political participation. It is what more democratic, and since it is more democratic than the two-party system, or it allows for what wider participation than the two-party system and one-party system, we could now say that the right answer to pick here is the wider political participation. So on the 33rd question, we could see that what which of the following is the ceremonial and presidential power fused? Which of the following is the ceremonial and executive power fused? We have what? A. Unitary system of government. B. Presidential system of government. C. Federal system of government. And D. Parliamentary system of government. You could see that what In which of the following is the ceremonial and executive power fused? A. Unitary system of government. B. Presidential system of government. C. Federal system of government. And D. Parliamentary system of government. Ceremonial and executive power fused. In which of these what following is the ceremonial and executive power fused? The ceremonial power, head of state, the executive power, head of government. In which of these head of state and head of power, head of government power fused? We could see that what it is the presidential system, because in parliamentary system, the ceremonial and the executive power are separated. In parliamentary system, the executive and the ceremonial powers are separated. But in the presidential system of government, executive and the ceremonial powers are fused, because the president have the executive power. The president does not share power with the head of state. The president or the prime minister, they are together. So the head of state or the head of government, they are fused together, making the president. So we could say that in the presidential system of government, the executive power and ceremonial powers are fused together. But in the parliamentary system of government, the executive and the ceremonial powers are separated. So the right answer to pick here is presidential system of government. So the 34th question, a major contentious issue confronting what Nigerian federalism is. Talking about federalism. Federalism is what? Federalism is a system of government in which the central government is divided from the central government, and the component units are totally divided. Federalism is whereby the central government and the component units are essentially they are divided. So consider one of the major contentious issues confronting Nigerian federalism is revenue allocation. It is minority issues of successions. It's ethnic rivalries, federal character commissions. All these are issues confronting Nigeria federalism. So consider one of the major issues revenue allocation. That's why you see that Nigeria have had different revenue allocations from time to time. We had the Ramas revolution or the Ramas allocation in 1958. We also had the Shins revolution. We also have the Udoji, the technical commission, the technical commission of the 1977. Also have different revenue allocation. So one of the issues confronting Nigeria federalism is revenue allocations. We also have the minor issues and issues of successions, and we also have the inter-ethnic rivalries. So you should take note that revenue allocation is a major contentious issue confronting Nigeria federalism. So moving to the next question, the 35th question, the main purpose of establishing public enterprise in Nigeria is one of the major purposes of establishing a statutory corporation or a public corporation in Nigeria is essentially to render crucial services to the public. So one of the main reasons for creating public corporation through an act of parliament is majorly to render essential services to the public, to provide crucial services to the public. So we could see that the main purpose of establishing public enterprise in Nigeria is to A, compete with the private sector, no, increase government revenue, C, enrich the elite, D, provide essential services. The answer right here is provide essential services. So on the 36th question, we have an attribute that Nigeria share with non-alignment countries is A, large size, B, state of our economy, C, large population, and D, heterogeneous population. An attribute that Nigeria share with most non-alignment country is A, large size, B, state of our economy, C, our large population, D, heterogeneous populations. So one of the factors that affect Nigeria foreign policy or non-alignment policy is demographic factors, that Nigeria is the most populous nation in the world. Also have economic factors that Nigeria have one of the largest economy in the world. So we see that one of the major attributes that Nigeria share with most non-alignment countries is based on our state of our economy. Nigeria have one of the largest economy in the world. Nigeria also have one of the they're one of the most highest producers of crude oil, one of the most highest exporters of So we see that the state of our economy is a major attribute that Nigeria share with what most non-alignment countries. What is non-alignment countries? Non-alignment countries, you should take note that we have what the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. The Eastern Bloc advocate for what socialism, and what the Western Bloc advocate for what capitalism. And since we have what the Eastern and the Social Bloc, Nigeria tend to what remain neutral. That means they will not involve themselves in what either the Eastern Bloc or the Western Bloc. So Nigeria tend to what remain what neutral in power what blocks. So an attribute that Nigeria shares most non-alignment countries is based on what our state of our economy. So on the 37th question, the tenure of what non-permanent members of the Executive Security Council is A, 6 years, B, 5 years, C, 4 years, D, 2 years. The tenure of of non-permanent members of the Security Council is A, 6 years, B, 5 years, C, 4 years, and D, 2 years. So we have structures of United Nations organizations, and one of the structures of United Nations organizations, General Assembly, also have security councils, also have what the trusteeship councils, also have what the secretariat, etc. But then we have the security council. The security council is divided into what? So we have the permanent members and the non-permanent members. The permanent members simply tells that what the permanent member was always remain in power permanently. That is, the permanent member must always remain in power permanently. And we have what the P5. We have what the P5 or the Big 5. The P5 or the Big 5 is what we regard as what the UFC. That is the U3FC. The U3FC. The U3FC represents what USA, UK, USSR, which is also called Russia, France, and China. We have what USA, USSR, which is also called what Russia, and also have what the UK. Then we have what France, and we have what China. So all these belong to the permanent members of the Security Council. Then we have what the non-permanent members of the Security Council. The non-permanent members of the Security Council usually hold office for 2 years. And since they usually hold office for 2 years, it is based on what rotational basis, in which if a country becomes the non-permanent member for 2 years, that country cannot become the non-permanent member again for 2 years unless re-elected. So find out that the tenure of non-permanent members is usually for 2 years. But then the tenure of a permanent member is indefinite. That it might take even 200 years, 200 years, 500 years, as the case may be. Is without a fixed tenure. That is, the tenure of a permanent member is an unfixed tenure, but the tenure of a non-permanent member is a fixed tenure of 2 years. So the answer here is 2 years. So on our 38th question, we find out that Nigeria spearheaded the formation of ECOWAS during the regime of A, Ibrahim Babangida, B, Olusegun Obasanjo, C, Murtala Mohammed, and D, Yakubu Gowon. We're taught international organizations and when we're taught international organization, we're told that ECOWAS belongs to the economic organization, OPEC belongs to the cartel organization, UNO belongs to the multicultural organizations, or the multi international organization, or the bicultural international organization. So I'm talking about ECOWAS. ECOWAS belongs to the economic organizations. OAU belongs to the regional or the continental organization. But ECOWAS belongs to the economic organization. ECOWAS was founded in May 1975. It was founded by who? It was established by who? Formed by who? Yakubu Gowon and Gwani Sekpe Eyadema for Tongo. Yakubu Gowon who? Gwani Sekpe Eyadema of what? Eyadema of what? Tongo. In 1975. In 1975, in which place again? Lagos, right? Lagos, Nigeria. So find out that Nigeria spearheaded the formation of ECOWAS during the regime of Yakubu Gowon. Take note of Yakubu Gowon in 1975. Then moving to the 39th question. The head of Nigeria foreign mission in a Commonwealth nation is known as. So there is something you have to take note for here. That is, take note of who is an high commissioner, who is an ambassador. The head of Nigeria foreign mission in a Commonwealth nation is known as attaché. Is it attaché? No. Who is an attaché? An attaché are diplomatic officers who work in an embassy. We could have what military attaché, we could have what cultural attachés. They perform different what functions in an embassy or in a diplomatic office or mission. But then there is an high commissioner. An high commissioner is the head of what Nigeria foreign mission in Commonwealth nation. The head of what? The head of a high commission is known as what? An high commission. The head of what? An high commission is known as what? An high commission. And then what is an high commission? An high commission is any diplomatic office in which what? They are members of the Commonwealth. Which are what they are members of the Commonwealth. So, but then an ambassador or an embassy is rather to find out that they are what non-what Commonwealth nations, but they are in a diplomatic office. So a diplomatic office in a what a non-Commonwealth what nation is called what an embassy, and is headed by what an ambassador. But then a diplomatic office in a what in a Commonwealth nation is headed by what an high commission, which is known as what an high commission. So take note of what your high commissioner and your what an ambassador. Then who is a charge d'affaires? The charge d'affaires. After charge d'affaires are diplomatic officers too. So you should take note that what high commissioner and what ambassador are what two different things. And high commissioner is what a diplomatic what officer in a Commonwealth nation. But then an ambassador is a diplomatic mission or a diplomatic office in a non-Commonwealth what nation. So the right answer to pick here is what an high commissioner. Then number 40 question, they said the approval of treaties and agreements of the ECOWAS, of the Economic Community of West Africa States, is the responsibility of A, Assembly of Head of States and Government, B, Secretariat, C, Council of Ministers, and D, ECOWAS Tribunal. So there's something we usually use for governments when talking of international organizations like, let's say, UNO. Anything that have to do with approval is for the General Assembly, and anything that have to do with recommendation is for the Security Council. Therefore, ECOWAS, anything that have to do with what approval is for the what? Is for the Assembly of Head of State and Government. And anything that have to do with what recommendation is for the what? Is for the Council of what? Ministers. So these are the three codes usually used on the time what? Approval and recommendation. So the approval of treaties and enduring agreements of Economic Community of West Africa State is the responsibility of what? Assembly of Head of State and Government. So the answer is Assembly of Head of State and Government. So take note of the 31 question or the 31st question, which is a major shortcoming of the Ombudsman is what lack of executive power to enforce decisions. The 32 is what one of the strong points of the what multi-party system in Nigeria is to what wider what political participation. And the 33 question is what in which of the following is the ceremonial and what executive power fused? The answer is presidential system of government. And then 34th question is a major contentious issue confronting Nigeria federalism is revenue what allocation. The 35th question, the main purpose of establishing public enterprise in Nigeria is to provide essential what services. The 36th question, an attribute that Nigeria share with most non-aligned countries is based on the state of our economy. And the 37th question, the tenure of non-permanent members of the Security Council is 2 years. Then the 38th question, Nigeria spearheaded the formation of ECOWAS during the regime of Yakubu Gowon. So they could ask you again that what ECOWAS was formed by Yakubu Gowon and Gwani Sekpe Yadema for Tungu. Yakubu Gowon is from Nigeria, so take note of that. So the 39th question, the head of Nigeria Foreign Mission Commonwealth nation is an high commissioner. I differentiate an high commissioner from what an ambassador. And the 40th question is what the approval of treaties and agreements of the ECOWAS is the responsibility of what Assembly of Head of State and Government. Alright guys, if you have any question, kindly put it down on the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dr. Flash.